You are at war, not with enemies, not with society, but with your own illusions. And every day you choose comfort over conquest, fantasy over fact, excuses over action. Today, we strip away the lies you keep telling yourself, because if you continue deceiving your own mind, you will lose the only kingdom you truly rule, your life. In this lesson, we turn to the ruthless wisdom of Niccolò Machiavelli, a man who studied power without sentiment and exposed the brutal truths behind success and failure. Machiavelli believed that self-deception destroys more lives than any enemy ever could. And today, we will uncover exactly how your internal lies weaken your ambition, sabotage your discipline, and keep you trapped while others rise. This is the problem we will solve. Why do you betray your own potential? And how do you conquer this betrayal before it destroys you? You believe your greatest enemies are out there, people sabotaging you, circumstances working against you, a world that refuses to make space for your ambition. But the truth Machiavelli forces us to look at without blinking, is far more brutal. The enemy that destroys you is the one living quietly inside your own mind. Self-deception, the lies you repeat until they feel like reality, the fantasies you protect because they soothe you, the stories you invent to avoid admitting your own negligence, your own fears, your own lack of discipline. Machiavelli observed rulers who sat on golden thrones, yet were conquered not by armies, but by their own illusions. They lost their kingdoms long before a single soldier marched against them. They lost the moment they convinced themselves they were secure, talented, prepared, invincible. And in your life, the same pattern plays out in a quieter, more personal way. Every time you pretend you are doing enough, every time you pretend you are changing, every time you pretend you are still trying when you have already surrendered, you create cracks in the foundation of your own kingdom. Self-deception doesn't roar, it whispers. It whispers that you deserve rest when you haven't earned it. It whispers that you'll start tomorrow, as if tomorrow owes you anything. It whispers that you are unlucky, not unfocused. And because these whispers feel gentle, comforting, familiar, you trust them. You protect them. You let them guide you more faithfully than you guide yourself. But Machiavelli would look at you and say, a ruler who cannot see clearly is already defeated. A person who cannot face their own truth walks blindly into ruin. The most dangerous fact about self-deception is that it disguises itself as self-kindness. You tell yourself you're being patient. You tell yourself you're avoiding stress. You tell yourself you're listening to your body when really you're listening to your fear. The fear that you won't succeed, the fear that you aren't good enough, the fear that if you fully committed, fully tried, fully pushed, you'd finally discover whether you truly have what it takes. And so you escape into the safety of lies, because lies protect your pride. Truth demands you risk it. But Machiavelli never believed comfort was harmless. He believed comfort corrupts. He believed lies rot a person from the inside like a slow, sweet poison. He believed that the moment you prefer illusion over reality, you forfeit power. And look at your life. Every area where you suffer today is tied to a lie you tolerated yesterday. You told yourself you had more time, so you didn't start. You told yourself you were doing enough, so you didn't improve. You told yourself you were waiting for clarity, so you didn't take action. You told yourself you weren't ready, so your opportunity moved on without you. Self-deception is deadly because it feels reasonable, it feels mature, it feels like a thoughtful explanation rather than a quiet surrender. You convince yourself the world is unfair, so you don't have to admit you made poor choices. You convince yourself others have advantages, so you don't have to confront your lack of discipline. You convince yourself you're overwhelmed, so you don't have to acknowledge how much time you waste. And Machiavelli would say, the ruler who lies to himself becomes the easiest ruler to conquer, because he fights battles that don't exist and ignores the threats standing directly before him. You know exactly where you are lying to yourself. You feel it in your chest when you look at your unfinished goals. You feel it in your guilt when you choose distraction over duty. You feel it in your frustration when you demand results you never worked for. And yet, instead of facing these moments with the cold clarity Machiavelli admired, you hide them under excuses. You decorate them with comforting language. You disguise them as external problems. This is how kingdoms fall, not through sudden catastrophe, but through constant self-betrayal disguised as emotional protection. Machiavelli believed that the strongest individuals were not the smartest, not the most talented, not the most privileged. They were the ones who refused to lie to themselves. Because a person who sees clearly gains an advantage that others will never touch. A person who sees clearly understands their weaknesses and can correct them. A person who sees clearly identifies their patterns and disrupts them. A person who sees clearly cannot be manipulated by fear, comfort, or illusion. And this clarity is not a gift, it is a discipline. It is a choice made every single day to confront reality instead of escaping into stories. And yet, most people avoid this discipline because truth is sharp, truth cuts, truth wounds the ego. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He wrote that truth is painful, but pain is the teacher that forges strength. Lies, on the other hand, give you pleasure without progress. They create the illusion of movement while your life quietly remains the same. And you cling to them because they allow you to protect your image instead of building your identity. But imagine, for a moment, what would happen if you stripped away every illusion, if you spoke to yourself with the same ruthless honesty Machiavelli demanded from rulers, if you evaluated your habits with the same cold precision you use when judging others, if you looked at your goals, your failures, your patterns, your excuses, your fears, and asked one question, what is the truth here? Not the story I've been telling myself. There is a misconception so deeply rooted in human nature that most avoid it at all costs. That truth must be gentle, comforting, or diluted to be bearable. Machiavelli would not entertain such folly. To him, truth is not a consolation. Truth is a weapon, a tool, a decisive instrument in the hands of those who dare to wield it. Every ruler who achieved greatness, every strategist who carved out power in the midst of chaos understood this principle implicitly. They understood that soft truths are useless, comforting lies are deadly, and that only a brutal confrontation with reality gives a man the leverage to control his fate. Consider the lives of those who failed because they refused to face what was. They surrounded themselves with flatterers, indulged in their fantasies, and accepted half-truths as reality. They wanted encouragement, not clarity. They wanted applause, not criticism. They wanted reassurance, not confrontation. Machiavelli would have looked at them and seen them for what they were, unarmed, defenseless, and doomed to fall at the first test of true power. The harsh truth is not a curse. It is the only path to strength. If you are willing to hear it, it exposes weaknesses that comfort hides, threats that ignorance conceals, and opportunities that laziness blinds you to. The man who refuses to confront the truth does so at his peril. He walks blind through a battlefield of his own making, imagining that he can dodge consequences while ignoring the conditions of reality. Harsh truth is the sharpest of weapons precisely because it pierces through illusion, cutting away the fantasies you cling to, the excuses you hide behind, and the pride that tells you you are sufficient when you are not. This weapon demands courage. It demands discipline. It demands a willingness to embrace discomfort as a necessary companion to growth. Most people recoil from such confrontation because it forces them to confront failure, to confront inadequacy, to confront the uncomfortable fact that the world does not bend to sentiment or hope. Yet those who master this discipline turn reality itself into their ally. They can anticipate moves, counter threats, and exploit weaknesses, not just in others but within themselves. They become architects of their own power rather than prisoners of circumstance. Machiavelli observed rulers who depended on flattery and deception, rulers who refused to face the truth about their own weaknesses, and he recorded their inevitable collapse. They fell not because they lacked armies or resources, but because they refused to wield the one weapon that could have protected them: truth. Truth allowed one to see the enemy coming, to understand the tides of fortune, and to act decisively before disaster struck. Without it, even the mightiest fortress is hollow, even the most loyal army is fragile, and even the cleverest strategies are doomed. In your own life, consider what truths you have avoided. What are the facts you refuse to confront? Perhaps you have been honest about the results you have produced, not the effort you've exerted. Perhaps you have been honest about the opportunities you have seen, not the risks you failed to manage. Perhaps you have been honest about the people around you, not about the compromises you have made to avoid conflict or criticism. Each time you skirt around these realities, you forfeit the weapon that could give you an edge in a world that is unforgiving. Harsh truth is not about judgment, it is about clarity. It does not demean or delight, it instructs. It allows a man to map the battlefield of his life, identify the real forces at play, and strike where action is required. The one who embraces it sees weaknesses not as insults but as openings, failures not as shame but as lessons, obstacles not as walls but as challenges to overcome. To wield truth is to wield foresight, precision, and strategy simultaneously. This discipline cannot be outsourced. No mentor, no friend, no advisor can deliver the full measure of truth for you. The one who wields this weapon must face themselves unflinchingly, interrogate their motives, question their assumptions, and examine every corner of their mind and life without mercy. Comfort is the enemy of this process because it clouds perception and delays decisive action. Lies are the enemy because they seduce and lull. Half-truths are the enemy because they distort the map just enough to make you stumble at the critical moment. Machiavelli would insist that if you want to dominate your circumstances, if you want to rise in a world ruled by cunning and opportunity, you must use harsh truth like a blade. You must train yourself to see the battlefield clearly, to assess the loyalty of allies without sentiment, to evaluate threats without fear, and to confront your own failures with courage rather than avoidance. Every ruler who has left a mark on history understood that to shield oneself from reality is to surrender before the battle even begins. To sharpen oneself with truth is to turn the world into a domain that can be managed, controlled, and mastered. Think of harsh truth as both mirror and sword. The mirror reveals the unvarnished self, the flaws, the weaknesses, the limitations, the dependencies, and the patterns of failure that no one else can show you. The sword, once that mirror is understood, allows you to act with precision, to strike at the areas of weakness, and to capitalize on opportunities that would remain invisible to anyone indulging in self-deception. Every decision, every plan, every strategy becomes more effective once it is filtered through this uncompromising lens. The world does not reward comfort or illusion. Fortune does not bend to those who imagine they are ready, but to those who see clearly, act decisively, and embrace the power of reality in all its harshness. Machiavelli's brilliance was that he recognized the double edge of truth. It wounds, yet it empowers. It is painful, yet it is liberating. It destroys illusions, yet it constructs mastery. Those who wield this weapon do not merely survive, they dominate. Every failure you have endured, every opportunity you missed, every time you felt powerless, can be traced back to one root cause, a refusal to confront reality as it is. To wield harsh truth is to turn this cause into your advantage. It is to arm yourself with knowledge that your competitors, your circumstances, and even your own habits cannot undermine. It is to see clearly where others are blind, and to act with precision where others falter. It is to understand that the cruelest truths are often the most valuable, and that the one who embraces them becomes untouchable in ways that comfort and lies will never allow. Humans have an instinctive desire for comfort. We seek it instinctively, we protect it zealously, and we convince ourselves that it is a reward for our labor or a shield against hardship. Machiavelli, however, would call this instinct what it truly is, a trap. Comfort is not a luxury, it is a prison, a silent cage that lulls the ambitious into complacency. It is the very thing that ensures potential is wasted, talent is squandered, and empires, both personal and political, wither without challenge. To remain comfortable is to halt growth, to abandon the battlefield, and to surrender to mediocrity under the guise of safety. Consider the comfort of routine, a condition so familiar that we mistake it for stability. We rise at the same hour, perform the same tasks, follow the same predictable patterns, and congratulate ourselves for being consistent. Yet, Machiavelli would remind us that consistency without purpose is inertia masquerading as progress. It is a way to avoid risk, a way to avoid responsibility, a way to deceive oneself into believing that stagnation is strategy. Every great ruler, every great leader, recognized that comfort is the enemy of dominance. They did not rest because it was easy, They acted because the cost of inaction was far greater than the temporary pain of effort. Comfort seduces you with the illusion of safety. It tells you that if you maintain your current position, everything will be fine. It whispers that avoiding conflict and challenges will keep you protected. It convinces you that if you remain within your familiar walls, shielded from uncertainty, you will never fail. But Machiavelli knew better. He understood that the world does not reward those who are merely comfortable. The world punishes them. Every empire that fell, every ruler who was deposed, every individual who never reached their potential, succumbed not because of overwhelming enemies, but because comfort lulled them into inaction. It is in moments of comfort that self-deception flourishes. You begin to justify mediocrity with excuses, to rationalize laziness as prudence, and to accept limitations as facts of life rather than challenges to overcome. You tell yourself that the small, predictable victories you achieve are sufficient. You convince yourself that avoiding risk is wisdom. You reassure yourself that avoiding discomfort is the same as avoiding failure. And while you indulge in these illusions, the world around you continues to move, to evolve, to reward those who embrace difficulty and confront adversity without hesitation. Machiavelli would point to the history of rulers and generals to illustrate this principle. The ones who lingered in comfort, who trusted in the stability of their surroundings, who surrounded themselves with yes-men and flattering advisors, fell quickly when fortune shifted. Meanwhile, those who embraced discomfort, who tested their limits, who ventured into uncertainty with eyes wide open, not only survived, they thrived. Comfort provides a temporary reprieve, but it is always at the expense of preparedness. It is always at the cost of power. It is always a signal that you are retreating from your own potential. Every human instinct that seeks comfort is essentially a temptation to surrender. We rationalize our avoidance of difficulty. We glorify ease. We romanticize inaction. And in doing so, we weaken ourselves. Machiavelli would not tolerate such rationalizations because they are the silent assassins of ambition. Comfort is deceptive. It is not neutral. It is an active force, one that binds your mind and dulls your senses, leaving you vulnerable to challenges that you could otherwise overcome. Those who fail to recognize this are trapped in an invisible cage, blind to the very danger that threatens their survival and success. Even in personal ambition, comfort manifests subtly. You choose the path of least resistance in your work, your relationships, your habits. You avoid confrontation, avoid criticism, and avoid challenge, convincing yourself that keeping peace is the wiser path. But Machiavelli understood that true power requires mastery over discomfort. It requires stepping into the arena when the outcome is uncertain. It requires making choices that frighten, that disturb, that demand sacrifice. Comfort, by contrast, tempts you to retreat, to preserve the status quo, and to abandon the pursuit of excellence in favor of ease. This trap is not always obvious. Often, comfort is disguised as prudence, carefulness, or wisdom. You tell yourself that resisting temptation, avoiding risk, or sticking to what is familiar is strategic thinking. Yet Machiavelli would recognize this as precisely the moment when ambition dies quietly. Every time you settle for less than your potential, every time you accept ease over effort, every time you cling to predictability instead of seizing opportunity, you fall into the trap of comfort. You convince yourself that temporary peace is more valuable than the long-term gains that come from struggle. Machiavelli's insight was that discomfort is the crucible in which strength is forged. The greater the struggle, the sharper the mind, the harder the resolve, the more capable the individual becomes. Comfort, on the other hand, dulls perception. It numbs judgment. It encourages reliance on luck rather than skill. Those who remain comfortable are always a step behind those who endure hardship by choice. They are reactionary, never proactive. They survive by circumstance, never by strategy. Every time you choose comfort, you delay the inevitable confrontation with reality. You delay the moment when you must face your own weaknesses, your own ambitions, and your own failures. You postpone the development of skills, the cultivation of resilience, and the sharpening of your mind. Machiavelli would argue that these delays are deadly because the world does not wait. Opportunities do not linger for the comfortable. Fortune does not favor the cautious who cling to ease. Those who embrace discomfort, who seek challenges, who test limits, who endure hardship deliberately, are the ones who carve their mark into history. Comfort is seductive, but it is also deceptive. It promises security while ensuring vulnerability. It promises peace while guaranteeing stagnation. It promises satisfaction while cultivating regret. Machiavelli's wisdom is clear. To achieve power, influence, and mastery over your life, you must recognize comfort for what it truly is, a trap. You must confront it, resist it, and use it as a signal to act, not to rest. The pursuit of greatness requires leaving ease behind, stepping into uncertainty, and enduring the struggles that ordinary men avoid. Clarity is a concept often spoken of in soft terms, as if understanding oneself and the world could be achieved through gentle reflection or polite introspection. Machiavelli would have none of this. To him, clarity is not a courtesy, it is a form of brutality, an uncompromising lens that cuts through comfort, sentiment, and illusion. It is the willingness to face reality with cold eyes and sharpened perception, to look at your own mind, your own actions, and your own failures without mercy, and to extract from them the lessons that others avoid at all costs. Without this ruthless clarity, ambition is blind, strategy is weak, and power is an illusion. Brutality in clarity begins with self-assessment. Most people shy away from examining their own weaknesses. They avoid confronting the truth of their character, their discipline, and their failures. They prefer flattering interpretations of their actions rather than honest evaluation. Machiavelli, however, insisted that every man who desires greatness must first dissect himself. He must identify the habits that undermine him, the fears that control him, the assumptions that mislead him. This is not a comfortable exercise, it is painful. It forces one to admit laziness, incompetence, and the countless ways in which one has fallen short. But it is necessary. Because until you see yourself exactly as you are, without filter, without excuse, without denial, you cannot act effectively in the world. Clarity also demands brutality toward the world. One must strip away the comforting narratives that society and culture provide. Most people live in a fog of collective assumptions, polite lies, and half-truths. They believe that success is fair, that effort will always be rewarded, and that talent alone ensures victory. Machiavelli observed that life does not conform to sentiment. Fortune favors not the sentimental, not the kind-hearted, not the self-assured, but the perceptive, the calculated, and the strategic. To gain clarity, you must strip the world of these comforting illusions. You must confront the fact that others will deceive you, exploit you, and attempt to control you. You must recognize that outcomes are determined by power, cunning, and foresight, not by your wishes or intentions. This understanding is brutal because it removes all illusions of fairness and safety. Brutality is also required in the examination of relationships. Machiavelli was uncompromising about the necessity of judging allies, friends, and enemies with precision. Emotional attachments cloud judgment, and sentimental thinking blinds men to the reality of loyalty and betrayal. Those who wish to succeed must ask themselves relentlessly, who truly benefits me, who hinders me, who can be trusted, and who will betray at the first opportunity. This exercise is painful, for it forces you to see friends as potential threats, to view networks as fragile alliances, and to accept that trust is a tool, not a virtue. But clarity cannot exist without honesty in evaluation, and honesty in evaluation cannot exist without brutal discernment. The world itself demands this brutality. Life is not a safe harbor, it is a battlefield. Machiavelli understood that those who are unprepared for the harsh realities of existence are destroyed long before they faced their supposed enemies. To survive, and ultimately to thrive, one must adopt a mindset that is both precise and merciless. You must confront data without bias, outcomes without sentiment, and possibilities without fear. Every strategy, every decision, every action must be informed by an unflinching assessment of reality. This is clarity. This is power. This is the difference between those who dominate their circumstances and those who are dominated by them. Brutality and clarity also applies to goals. Most people speak of ambition in broad poetic terms. They dream of success, influence, and achievement, yet they rarely measure themselves against the exacting standards required to obtain them. Machiavelli would demand that a man define his objectives with precision, break them down into measurable steps, and evaluate progress with a critical eye. Every failure must be dissected. Every inefficiency must be exposed. Every misstep must be understood as a lesson rather than excused with platitudes. This rigorous analysis is uncomfortable, often harsh, yet it is the only method by which one can attain mastery over one's circumstances. Even in the personal sphere, clarity demands that one confront emotions and instincts without illusion. People often rationalize their fears, ignore their weaknesses, and indulge in comforting self-narratives. Machiavelli would argue that these are fatal mistakes. To act decisively, one must identify fear without flinching, acknowledge desire without delusion, and recognize the patterns of behavior that have historically led to failure. Only when a man has stripped away these illusions and faced the raw mechanisms of his own psyche can he deploy his energy with precision and strategy. Brutality is required because the mind will resist scrutiny. It will prefer comfort over truth, sentiment over strategy. Only forceful honesty can overcome this natural resistance. Clarity also demands observation of the environment with the same uncompromising lens. History, society, and human behavior are rife with lessons, but they are hidden beneath the veneer of appearances. Machiavelli instructed that a ruler, or a person seeking mastery, must be ruthless in perceiving the intentions, capabilities, and weaknesses of others. The comfortable man sees allies as permanent and enemies as obvious. The perceptive man sees opportunity in weakness and threat in subtlety. This type of perception is brutal because it rejects politeness, it rejects wishful thinking, and it demands acute awareness of everything, including the unpleasant truths that others avoid acknowledging. Finally, clarity demands that one act decisively on the brutal truths uncovered. Knowledge alone is powerless if not transformed into action. The person who sees their flaws, the patterns of failure, and the hidden forces around them but hesitates, still loses. Machiavelli would argue that hesitation in the face of truth is equivalent to surrender. Only by facing reality fully, embracing the discomfort it brings, and making deliberate, calculated moves can a man harness the power of clarity to dominate his life and circumstances. Clarity is not gentle. It is not polite. It is not forgiving. It is not designed to make you feel comfortable or validated. It is designed to expose, to challenge, and to force growth. Machiavelli understood that the moment a man chooses to see the world and himself without illusions, he gains a weapon more powerful than armies or wealth. Brutality in clarity ensures that no lie, no fantasy, no false comfort can derail him, for he has stripped existence to its essence and positioned himself to act with precision, strategy, and control. Power is often misunderstood. Most people assume it belongs to the strong, the lucky, the wealthy, or the charismatic. Machiavelli would immediately dismiss such naive notions. True power does not reside in external advantages alone. It resides in perception, in clarity, and above all, in the honest observer. The one who sees the world as it is, not as they wish it to be, holds the ultimate advantage. In every sphere of life, politics, business, personal ambition, the honest observer perceives reality without distortion, understands the forces at play, and acts decisively where others hesitate or falter. This is the essence of power, and it is far more rare than talent or opportunity because it requires courage, discipline, and unflinching honesty. The honest observer begins with the self. Machiavelli would insist that the first and most important domain to observe is one's own mind, behavior, and motives. To be powerful, you must understand your strengths and weaknesses with brutal honesty. You must recognize where your skills are sufficient and where your deficiencies will betray you if left unchecked. This kind of observation requires humility, but not weakness. It requires the courage to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself, to admit failure, and to acknowledge that personal effort, if misdirected, is worthless. Most people avoid this examination because it is uncomfortable, because it exposes their vulnerabilities and because it forces them to confront the fact that they are not as prepared or capable as they imagined. But the honest observer does not shrink from these truths. He studies himself as a general studies the battlefield, meticulously, without bias, without sentiment, without excuses. Beyond self-awareness, power belongs to those who observe others honestly. Flattery, deception, and wishful thinking distort judgment. Most people view allies through rose-colored glasses and enemies through exaggerated suspicion. Machiavelli would argue that this is the fastest route to disaster. The honest observer sees alliances clearly, discerning which loyalties are genuine and which are conditional. He observes rivals with precision, identifying not only the overt threats but also the subtle vulnerabilities that others overlook. He reads actions, not intentions, and outcomes, not promises. This kind of perception is not born from trust or hope. It is born from deliberate, continuous observation and an unwavering commitment to seeing the truth without bias. Observation extends to circumstance and environment. The honest observer does not cling to assumptions about the world, waiting for life to unfold according to expectation. He studies trends, evaluates forces, and anticipates shifts in fortune before they manifest. Machiavelli would describe this as the essence of prudence, the ability to align one's actions with the true state of the world rather than the imagined state. Those who fail to observe accurately are blindsided by events they believed they understood. They prepare for battles that never occur and ignore dangers that strike without warning. The honest observer, however, constantly calibrates his understanding of the world, recognizing change as the only constant and adapting his strategies accordingly. Honesty in observation also means stripping away the comfort of false narratives. Society encourages illusions, the myth of meritocracy, the delusion of fairness, the fantasy of guaranteed success. People cling to these narratives because they are soothing, but Machiavelli recognized them as dangerous. They blind individuals to risk, mislead them in decision-making, and erode their capacity for action. The honest observer rejects these comforts. He sees the biases of society, the hidden agendas of people, and the unpredictable nature of fortune. By acknowledging reality, he can position himself strategically, turning risks into opportunities and transforming apparent disadvantages into advantages. Power also belongs to the honest observer because he does not wait for permission to act. Most people hesitate because they hope for validation, reassurance, or consensus. They defer decisions because they are afraid of making mistakes or offending someone's perception. Machiavelli understood that hesitation is the enemy of influence. The honest observer gathers information accurately, evaluates it dispassionately, and then moves decisively. He acts based on facts, not opinion, based on patterns, not hope. This decisiveness, grounded in honest observation, ensures that he can exploit openings, avoid traps, and influence outcomes in ways that the complacent cannot. Another critical element of power lies in the honest observer's understanding of timing. Opportunity is fleeting, and fortune favors the prepared. By observing the environment, understanding human behavior, and accurately assessing risk, the honest observer can act at precisely the moment when his actions will produce maximum effect. Machiavelli would argue that fortune aids the prepared mind. Those who rely on luck or passively wait for events to unfold relinquish power to those who perceive, analyze, and act with precision. Timing is not guesswork, it is the disciplined application of observation to action, and it is a hallmark of true mastery. The honest observer also recognizes the importance of self-restraint and strategic concealment. Machiavelli frequently emphasizes that the appearance of strength and the management of perception are as critical as actual power. The honest observer understands both. He sees his capabilities clearly, and he projects only what serves his objective. By observing himself and others with accuracy, he can manipulate appearances to advantage without compromising integrity or clarity. Power flows naturally to those who understand when to act openly, when to conceal, and when to deploy force, influence, or persuasion. Ultimately, Machiavelli teaches that power is not about luck, charisma, or temporary advantage. It is about seeing clearly, acting decisively, and understanding every variable in play. The honest observer has an unerring advantage because he comprehends what others ignore or distort. He recognizes danger before it strikes, opportunity before it is obvious, and his own capacity before it is tested. In every decision, every interaction, every challenge, he operates with a precision that others cannot match because they are blinded by illusion, comfort, or denial. The honest observer does not flinch from the truths he sees. He faces the world without sentiment, without bias, and without hope for automatic justice. He understands that fortune is fickle, people are unpredictable, and effort alone is insufficient. Yet he also understands that accurate perception, combined with disciplined action, is the most reliable path to influence, control, and achievement. Those who cultivate this capacity are rarely surprised, rarely undermined, and consistently positioned to convert challenge into advantage. The world rewards the honest observer because the world is indifferent to lies, comfort, and sentiment. Only those who perceive reality with clarity, who understand themselves and others without illusion, and who act with purpose and precision can achieve true dominance. Machiavelli's brilliance lies in recognizing that honesty with oneself and the world is not a moral choice, but a strategic imperative. Power, influence, and survival are granted to those who observe clearly, think strategically, and act decisively while others are still blinded by illusion, distracted by comfort, or deceived by false appearances. Machiavelli's wisdom is harsh, unflinching, and brutally honest, but that is precisely why it endures. Every keynote we explored, from the peril of self-deception to the power of the honest observer, reveals a single truth. Greatness is reserved for those who confront reality without compromise. Comfort, lies, illusions, and sentiment are chains that bind ambition, while clarity, discipline, and honesty are weapons that forge mastery. The path he prescribes is not easy. It demands self-examination, courage, and relentless honesty. It demands that you strip away the fantasies that soothe you, face the weaknesses you fear, and embrace the discomfort that builds strength. The moment you stop lying to yourself, the moment you wield truth as a weapon, you step into a domain where most will never follow. You gain the ability to see opportunities before others, to act decisively where others hesitate, and to shape your life rather than be shaped by circumstance. Machiavelli's brutal warning is simple. The world will not pause for your comfort, forgive your illusions, or reward your fantasies. Power belongs to the one who observes clearly, acts strategically, and refuses to deceive themselves. Every kingdom collapses from within when lies and self-deception take root, but every empire begins with honest observation, ruthless clarity, and unwavering action. The question is not whether the world will challenge you, it always will. The question is whether you are prepared to see it as it is, to confront your own weaknesses, and to wield the truths you uncover as weapons in the pursuit of mastery. Stop lying to yourself. Stop hiding from reality. Stop pretending that comfort is safety. Embrace clarity, embrace discomfort, and embrace the brutal honesty that will allow you to rise above mediocrity, dominate your circumstances, and claim the power that belongs to the honest observer.